topic has been covered many times, but there's some interesting new ones. I'm going to add a couple right at the end, and then I will allow you to send me additional feedback. The things that drivers hate about driving for Uber and Lyft, right? So once you've gone through them, you will read a couple of extra points from me, and then I will take additional points from you and make up a follow-up video to this one with your additional points that are not covered in here. So let's go over these things that drivers hate about driving for Uber and Lyft. There are probably few jobs with more annoyances and frustrations than driving for Uber and Lyft. Now, I know everyone has frustrations with their jobs, and all jobs come with their annoyances, but in terms of sheer numbers of annoyances, rideshare driving might just have everything else beat. And I would agree with that. It's a tough job, and there's a lot of things that we have to deal with. There's a lot of moving parts. In fact, in coming up with this list of the top 10 things drivers hate, the biggest problem I had was in culling the list down to just 10, right? And he's absolutely right. We're obviously going to add another 10, 20 points to this. These 10 are focused mainly on bad habits and behaviors that are common among riders and major limitations for drivers. So number one, riders with more passengers than is legal. We know that, right? When they try to cram a couple of extras into your car, especially with the new mask rules, it causes a lot of friction. It causes a lot of problems that can easily escalate, and it's not right. This one happens with surprising frequency. You would think most people know that there are limits imposed by law on the maximum occupancy for each different type of vehicle. And my friends, the riders know what the maximum occupancy is, but they'll try and push, they'll try and save money, and they will try and put you into a tough spot over and over and over again. A normal passenger car is limited to 5 passengers total, including the driver. That means that the maximum number of passengers as an Uber rider can have is 4. During the pandemic, 3. Nobody sits in the front seat. But you would be surprised at how often these riders try to cram 5 and even 6 people into a regular passenger sedan, otherwise known as an UberX vehicle. While Uber and Lyft both have larger vehicles that can accommodate a few more passengers, their basic vehicle is limited to just 4 passengers. Riders typically try to stuff more people in than allowed at night and on weekends. Usually they're a bit drunk and not fully aware of what's going, which brings us to annoyance number 2, the inebriated passengers, the drunk passengers. Now, by the way, this also happens in XL. It's, the bigger categories, XL and SUV, they will still try and put 8 or 9 people in your car, right? So it's not just an UberX or a Lyft regular thing. It also goes for the other categories as well. So number 2, inebriated passengers are the single most common source of problems between drivers and riders. And folks, it gets dangerous sometimes. Drunk passengers can run the gamut from falling asleep to shouting and cursing the whole way home and everything in between. Fights, you name it. I've seen crying unstoppable after screaming out the window and just about everything you can imagine. But of course, the worst is when drunk passengers throw up in your car, right? One negative experience most drivers try to avoid with drunks is when they're over the top angry. I've had riders who would roll the window down and start screaming at the top of their lungs to let the whole world know just how angry they were. I've had riders who screamed insults, threats, and epithets at passing cars and pedestrians in ways I thought were going to get us both killed. It's very dangerous. I've had drunkards shout at people outside, walking on the sideway when we're at a red light. These guys came running, and a big fight erupted between the guys in the car, the drunkies, and the people outside, right? So you got to control these drunkards. One of the things drivers need to be on the lookout for when drunks board the vehicle is making sure the rider has gotten in the right vehicle. Important. They've had a bad habit of calling an Uber and Lyft and then getting into the first one that shows up because they're drunk. They also have a reoccurring habit of not remembering their address and typing the wrong one in the app. All in all, drunk passengers are something most of us would be happy to never see again. The best way to handle them is to stay pleasant and quiet. Backseat drivers. A lot of riders, especially drunk ones, like to give the driver turn-by-turn instructions rather than have them follow the GPS instructions. This would be okay, but a lot of these riders have a nasty habit of giving bad instructions and then blaming the driver when they end up lost. Unfortunately, there's not much drivers can do in this situation, but they can expect to get a bad rating after the trip is over. It's a tough one. Loud music. Riders have been told by Uber and Lyft that drivers can let them play music from their phones via Bluetooth over the driver's car stereo system. Most drivers hate it when they get a request for those, though that's because riders typically play music the driver doesn't like and they want to crank it up full blast. So the driver not only has to listen to music he or she doesn't like, but they have to listen to it at full volume. You know, I don't have a problem with the music I don't like, right? This is the music they want. They become the DJ and you go along with it. The problem is if it's just blaring loud beyond, right, where nobody can understand anything and it starts impacting your driving, right? Eating in the car, very bad one. There's a general rule of etiquette that you should never eat in a stranger's car. However, a lot of riders apparently seem to feel that if they're paying for the trip, they can do pretty much whatever they want. They think they own your car, right? Drivers wouldn't mind riders eating in their cars if they could just keep everything perfectly clean and not drop a single crumb on the seats. You get the patty, the tomatoes, the fries on the floor, the ketchup's on the seats. It gets nuts. In reality, it's just not possible to do that. Everyone knows the minute you break out the food, some of it's going to end up in the seat and the floor. Most drivers work hard to keep their cars clean, so this is indeed a big annoyance for them. Let me know how you handle that one. Requesting extras. In the early days of rideshare, when rates and driver pay was much higher than it is today, 3 or 4 times higher, passengers were told by Uber and Lyft that their drivers would have all kinds of amenities on hand, such as bottled water and phone chargers. Several years ago, Uber even sent out Apple and Android style chargers to drivers, but since then drivers have had to either go without or provide their own chargers. Most drivers find it irritating though when passengers ask for a charger because they know they're going to have to fumble around a bit to get them out and plug them in. I would just say have your chargers ready, right? Just you don't want to get into that situation where you start arguing about chargers and you have to plug it in. Just have them ready, right, with long extension cords to the back. If a driver dares to express a different opinion, it could lead to a lower rating from the rider, which drivers work to avoid at all costs. So when the conversation turns political, the driver usually has to sit up and keep his thoughts and anger to himself. Bad ratings for no reasons. We hate this one. This happens more often than you'd think. The rider gets in your car, compliments you on your car, on your driving, on various things, and then gets out and leaves you a 1-star rating. It just doesn't make sense. Drivers report these trips are flawless. Their driving was fine. They got to the destination quickly. The passenger complimented them on all. And then the next thing they know, their rating goes down a few tenths of a percent. Number 9, broken promises, no tip. Bad one. This is one related to the last. Many riders get out of the car profusely thanking the driver and making what appears to be a sincere promise to leave a very generous tip in the app, and then no tip ever shows up. This happens so frequently, in fact, that drivers have come to expect that the surest sign they won't get a tip is when a rider promises to leave them. If you are a driver and you are going along as a passenger in another car, just give them a tip. Give them a healthy tip. That's what I do in cash. No questions asked, right? Low pay. Number 10, low pay. Probably shouldn't have made this number 10 as it is more like number 1. It is number 1, the low pay, right? The number 1 gripe of Uber and Lyft drivers, the pay is abysmally low. Most drivers earn less than $10 an hour after car expenses are paid. The reason pay is so low is because Uber and Lyft have constantly lowered pay over the last several years, while at the same time flooding the streets with far more drivers than they could ever possibly keep busy. That's why I said, bring Travis back. At least he paid. He may not be the best CEO. but he paid the drivers decently. Many drivers are sitting unpaid while waiting for their next trip, while just a few drivers are actually on a trip earning money. It's a gig that will still attract workers. With all the cons and annoyances of rideshare work, it is work that will be much in demand in the following months after more than 40 million Americans have lost their jobs. Unfortunately, though, if Uber and Lyft don't break a long-time habit and put limits on the number of drivers they take on, it will make it very difficult for any individual driver to make ends meet. Drivers will struggle just to make minimum wage. Now, I want to add to this the algorithms that they completely change week after week, month after month, to extract the most out of us, right? They bait and switch rewards and offers and surges. I would add to this long list, failing, the companies failing drivers on safety, saying that they will do things about safety. They don't spend any money on safety. They'll go and spend money on changing the algorithms to screw you over, but they will not run background checks on riders. They will not stop these fake names of riders. They will tolerate the fact that the riders are not uploading photos. All of these things really, really annoy drivers and put them in a very, very dangerous position, because this executive trash at these companies keep on failing the drivers. Now, I would want you to add to this list. Just put your points below, your annoyances, your grievances. I will look at those. If they're not in those 10, 15 that I've just mentioned, I'm going to put them in the follow up video. Oh, another one that really pisses me off is when the rider slams the door, like literally slams the door that the entire car shakes. I cannot stand that. The other one that I hate is when people vape or smoke in your car, and you have signs like I do in my car, no vaping, no smoking, and they still go over those laws and do whatever they want in your car, right? And maybe another one, while I'm on a roll, one that I really hate, is people with extreme bad body odor, people that haven't washed themselves, people that don't care about their hygiene. They get in your car, they fart, they stink. It's disgusting, right? So add to this list. We've come up with 15 right there, 10 plus maybe my 5, 6. I hope to get another 30 from you, another 30 points. I'll make a follow-up video, I promise. I'll mention you by name. And my friend from the 847 code that always sends me those wonderful links, I just want to give you a shout out. Thank you as well for always, sending cool stuff that you find in research. I research all the search engines daily to get all the news articles, but sometimes this friend of mine finds articles that I don't come across. So a huge thank you to him. And again, I'm excited to get your feedback on this one, my friends. Please be safe out there. Oh, another one. I have one more last one, right? The riders know the rules about masks, right? Yet they will still get into our cars without masks. And the problems that occur, the fights that occur, right, that result from that point, that mask issue, people that refuse to wear the mask, right? You get 1-star ratings. It ends up in quarrels. It can get dangerous. It's terrible. So please add to this list. I'm excited to hear your feedback.